Alright, round 8 is all over and we now enter the final stretch of the year. I know it always feels so short, these women's seasons, but regardless, we're starting to get a clear picture of where the final ladder will look and which teams are going to make finals and which teams are probably not. But regardless, before we get into that, let's have a look about how our predictions went. And once again, Hawthorn just keep winning. Yay. I think I guess they got North Melbourne in the final round, but we'll see how that goes. Regardless, once again, another team that always seems to keep winning. Melbourne made easy work of poor Essendon. Like, what happened? They started 3-0 and have just not won a game since. Meanwhile, St Kilda, I was just 1 point off the margin, but yeah, they made pretty easy work of the Giants. Unfortunately, the Giants haven't seemed to quite found their footing since beating Sydney. North Melbourne, just destroyed Sydney. Sydney's another team we're going to get a little worried about. Like, we had a lot of hope for them, and they arguably did worse than a lot of other teams they've gone up against, North Melbourne. And then we get to the Q Clash, and Brisbane once again won pretty easy. And then we get to Alberton, the only home game I attended, and yep, my tipping worked perfectly. I tipped the Bulldogs, and Port Adelaide won. So I think I'm just going to keep tipping against us, because that seems to be the only way we're going to win. But meanwhile, on the other hand, let's think about a tip that I think nobody got. Richmond bet Adelaide. What? How? How did Richmond do that? Like, what's hilarious, this is the second time Adelaide, obviously the men's last year, lost to a bottom of the ladder Richmond. It's like, what's it with Adelaide and using to rubbish Richmond teams? Like, oh, that has got to be the upset of the season, that there. But speaking of other upsets, one I got correct, Carlton won. I think a lot of people were just like, oh, Geelong's too good. But no, I knew my history. I knew Carlton seemed to play Geelong well. And in fact, that was more correct. I had the margin at 4. They won by 18. And then finally, I think I once again underestimated West Coast. They are really firing in this latter part of the year with a massive win over Collingwood, who I think at the start were looking a little deadly. But yeah, West Coast, once again, really good team at running out the game, I've noticed. But regardless, let's get into round 9 itself. And without further ado, we're actually in Pride round this time. So I expect a lot of rainbow-coloured jerseys. Unfortunately, I won't be buying one, but mainly because they're really expensive. I'm not buying all the novelty. I'm only going to really have the main one, because I'm not going to have a whole collection of jumpers just for the sake of it. So it'll still be this one until the end of the season. So without further ado, let's get into the first game. And we don't have any Thursday night games anymore, but we do have a Friday night game between Bulldogs and Essendon at Mission Winton Oval and 7:15. So the odds on this one are a bit strange. I think the Essendon was on the betting odds, but the Bulldogs I think might have been on the tipping odds on the tipping website. Last time these two teams played, the Essendon won a massive win against the Bulldogs, and I think it was last year. But this year it's definitely kind of up in the air. Obviously, we had the Bulldogs, smashing Collingwood and 2 weeks ago, and then, running Port Adelaide pretty well for at least half a game, and definitely looked like a pretty strong outfit. But at the same time, the Essendon, you think, they haven't won a game since round 3, and so it's difficult to figure out where both teams are at. I'm thinking Essendon's going to get the bounce back here, because I feel more confident in them than the Bulldogs, but at the same time, the Bulldogs have been known to, have a good game every now and then. But it's for this reason, I think I'm going to go with Essendon, and I think Essendon's actually going to win quite big here. I've just got the feeling here, so I'm going to give them by 25. And then we got Adelaide versus West Coast, now on to Saturday 1:05 at Norwood. Odds are this game that Adelaide's going to win, and I'm pretty sure Adelaide bet West Coast last time these teams played. I think it was 2 years ago. West Coast definitely looking really solid going into the end of this year, and at the same time, Adelaide obviously had their surprising loss to Richmond, but you think Adelaide's going to bounce back after that Richmond loss and probably come back much stronger, and I think they're going to win, but maybe not by much. Let's say they win by 10. All right, Geelong versus GWS at GMHBA Stadium at 3:05. The odds are, I think, for Geelong to win this one. I think Geelong also won last season in the Student Teams met, although that might have been a while ago. Obviously, Geelong is definitely looking to bounce back after 2 disappointing losses. They probably could have bet Hawthorn and Carlton, and they're probably very annoyed that they didn't. So I'm definitely thinking they're going to probably take a lot of it out on GWS. And I think the margin, I'll say Geelong by 15, but I don't be surprised if the margin gets way bigger than that. All right, 3:05 as well on the Saturday. We have Hawthorn versus Gold Coast at Kinetic Stadium. I think last time the two teams met, Hawthorn won pretty comfortably, and the odds are also saying that I think Hawthorn's going to win. And to be honest, yeah, this is a foregone conclusion. But the big question is, can Hawthorn break their 6-goal curse and actually get a decent score this time? To be honest, somehow I feel like they're just not going to be able to do that, and somehow Gold Coast is going to keep them down to their low score, but I think Hawthorn's going to keep Gold Coast to an even lower score and win by, let's say, 25. All right, 5:05 on the Saturday, and we have Brisbane versus my beloved Port Adelaide, Brighton's home arena. Last time the students met, I think Brisbane won, but I think that was like 2 years ago. This is before I got into AFLW. And the odds are definitely on Brisbane's side. Like, they're definitely just the stronger. Also, they smashed Gold Coast last week. They're definitely the stronger of the teams. Obviously, they did lose to Carlton and Hawthorn earlier in the year, but I don't think Port Adelaide's quite got their same level of calibre. Obviously, Port did beat Melbourne, so we can beat top of the ladder teams, but yeah, regardless. I'm going to just, anyway, you know what, even if I did think Port was going to win, we're sticking to the reverse psychology from last week, so I'm going to say Brisbane by 18 and hope that somehow jinxes Port Adelaide into a win. All right, finishing up Saturday night, 7:15, Icon Park, Richmond versus North Melbourne. So, Richmond took down Adelaide. Are they going to take down another top of the ladder team? No, this is North Melbourne talk. North Melbourne don't lose games. Although I could eat those words, but I'm probably most definitely... But come on, am I going to really eat those words? No. Anyway, North Melbourne's going to easily win this one by 70 points. All right, Sydney versus Carlton at Henson Park on the Sunday, 1:05. All right, last time these two teams met, Carlton won, but that was 2 years ago. But the odds this time seem to say they think Sydney's going to win, which is interesting because I think Carlton's been way much stronger of a team. And it's interesting because obviously when these teams met, I thought this was going to be a great game. These are two teams doing really well, but Sydney is just, like Essendon, has just really fallen off since losing to Collingwood. And I'm worried. I think they're in 9th at the moment. They might not even make finals after such an amazing start to the year. And for this very reason, that I'm definitely putting Carlton above Sydney here. They're going to win. I think they're going to win by 10. I'm feeling a lot more confident on where Carlton is instead of Sydney. Speaking about another team that's definitely surprising how good they've been, we got St Kilda versus Collingwood at RSCA Park at the 3:05 on the Sunday. Last time those two teams met, I think St Kilda won, and the odds are also saying they think St Kilda's going to win. Obviously, St Kilda's another team that's definitely surprising people by potentially looking like they're going to finish in the top 8 this year. Collingwood, on the other hand, they've had their moments, but they've never really been the sort of dominant powerhouse that's... But they haven't really had... But they've only seemed to have like good performances once every few games. And it's for this reason that you feel like Saints are the generally more reliable team. And plus, I think they're on a 3-game win streak at the moment. So you're definitely going to hand that to them. And I think St Kilda will win this game by 8. And potentially they might be closing in and locking in a finals spot. And then finally, 5:05 on the Sunday, we have Fremantle versus Melbourne at Fremantle Oval. Apparently they've changed it back from Fremantle Community Bank Oval, which is, I don't know, maybe I'll just stick to Fremantle Oval because it's a lot easier to put in the text below than the full Fremantle Community Bank Oval. That's a long title. But regardless, stop talking about the name. And obviously, the odds of this game, I think, were a bit weird because I think Melbourne was winning the betting odds and Fremantle was winning the tipping odds. But I definitely feel like Melbourne's the stronger team. Obviously, Freo's been sort of up and down this year, although I think they've been on a bit of a losing streak recently. Meanwhile, Melbourne's obviously, hunting for a top 2 finish, and it's for this very reason that you definitely think Melbourne is going to be the stronger team going into this game. So I think I'll say Melbourne will win by 21. So just to recap, I have Essendon winning by 25, Adelaide by 10, Geelong by 15, Hawthorn by 25, Brisbane by 18, North Melbourne by 70, Carlton by 10, St Kilda by 8, and Melbourne by 21. Alright guys, with that I hope you enjoy Pride Round as we see if we can get any more crazy upsets as we get into the last part of this year. And as for me, I'll be shouting, "Let's go Power!"